So I'd like to give a warm welcome to everyone joining. We are together today to talk about India-Denmark opportunities, and I'm delighted to welcome all the people in the room and the audience around in each of your locations. Plus, we have Arturo Briz from IMD. Hello. And I think you are there. And we also have Freddy Svane, His Excellency Ambassador Freddy Svane in New Delhi.
Hello.
So let me just very briefly tell about Future Vision Denmark and this event, and then I'll hand over to Freddy as the first speaker. I would say all countries right now are in a situation where we are trying our best to figure out what to do. And we're not going to focus on the corona crisis, but we're going to focus on trying to look forward for the future. And one of the important factors for the future will be collaboration. Collaboration across borders, collaboration across all kinds of borders. And I hope this session here can contribute to this. I'm delighted that we have such a strong team of keynote speakers and panelists. And I dare to say that this is a group of people that really can make a contribution. But we also need to get questions. And the service that Microsoft kindly has offered, Peter Lunding-Smith and Katarina here are ready in the background, is to make sure that we get questions from you. So if you on the chat can ask questions, it will be highly appreciated. So on this note, allow me to pass over to His Excellency Ambassador Freddy Svane in New Delhi. Freddy, would you like to start by presenting opportunities India, Denmark from your perspective?
No. Of course I would like, and I'm truly delighted to be part of this conference. I think it's a golden opportunity. I'm a salesman, so I will of course be very positive about the opportunities that India can offer in the future. And of course I know some of you would like to have a kind of return on your investment, and that's how it is. But I think it's important to give a kind of assessment from my chair about India and what India will be looking like after the post-COVID-19 situation. We all know that India is a huge country. It's in fact a living civilization. It has 1.4 billion inhabitants, but it's a country or nation that stretches over 7 centuries. So at one spot today, you can find something remind us about medieval times in Europe. And at some other times or spots here in India, you can find the most futuristic kind of place and site here in India. So it's a huge country, it's a huge nation. What I would like to stress is that the COVID, in fact, has really matured India. And I think that India now is really focused on not just issuing nice statements, nice hot political declarations about the opportunities in India. India has really learned a lot of things, and I'll try to take you through that. But let me see, let me underline that I just came from a meeting with the Indian Ministry of Foreign Relations, and they, much to our surprise, they said, let's have the green strategic policy between them moving. And they, the first time ever, said 4 weeks, and then our Prime Minister will call the Danish Prime Minister. And they're very serious about it, and they're also serious about what should be the concept of strategic partnership agreement. And it's about energy, support, water, sustainability, it's about SDGs and all these things. So they're very keen to work on this green agenda. India will economically take a hit this year. Might be that they will go into recession, but next year all predictions are that India will move into a kind of positive terrain. And one of the good things is that there's an excess capital liquidity in the system. The banks have 6 trillion rupees, which cannot be dispersed for the time being due to a lot of restrictions. That will be eased at the end of this year. The private households have saved during the COVID 2-3 months. They have saved more than they did last year. So there's a lot of excess liquidity in the system, but they have really to work on that, and they are doing that. They will not restart the economy this year big time, because that will not have the impact that they want. India considers that they have a huge opportunity now, and of course they are very keen to benefit from the perhaps dislike of China. So they are really keen to attract foreign direct investments. In our interactions, we tell them that's fine. You have said that many times, but let's really see some actions. It's really important that we have a single window of clearances. We have a single window for getting licenses, access to land, and working capital at internationally comparable level and so forth. And they're going to work on that. I'm sure that Amitabh Kant will address some of these issues. As we see it, there will be a number of opportunities, and it's really about the green transformation out here. They need electricity, they need water, they need smart grids and all that. And of course, I know you have very demanding requirements as to the return on investment when you're investing your money. And that's fine. It's fine with me. It's fine with India. But sometimes you also have to look for opportunities that might mature over time. And I think it's important to have that in mind. What is important here is that India has now realized that they have to develop a system where an investor comes and will get a hand holding system in place. That's why they have decided to put in place what they call an empowered committee, and Amitabh Kant is part of that. And the idea is really to take all the investors, whether the institutional investors or company investors, are really throughout India. And I tell you, we have so many requirements from Danish companies, and they are just as demanding as you are when you want your money back at the shortest term and with the biggest return that you could wish for. But this is perhaps a little bit longer investment that we need out here, and they have no money left. So the government will not come with money to you. It's really impossible. So you need, and we are trying on our side to also to bring in place a system where all the financial tools that Denmark and EU will have at disposal, that this can be part of the solution. Another thing which is important here is that they would not like to see trading. They want to be self-reliant. That's not the same as they don't want to have international cooperation or interaction and all that. They would simply like to have jobs created in India. The most recent project that was really taking not only the Indian headlines but also global headlines was an Adani project. Adani is going to invest in the biggest solar project anywhere in the world, but the trade-off was, and they get very high feed-in tariffs. You have not seen these tariffs anywhere in the world, and they're extremely high. But the trade-off is that Adani will have to set up a manufacturing unit, because India wants jobs. They want really a transfer of technology. And in that context, if a Danish company would like to invest out here, they have to relocate, they have to put money on the ground. And with the new system in place, I think we can have all these licenses and the red tape to go away very easily. Bilaterally, we will have, I think, a call between our two prime ministers within 4 weeks, where we are really moving this strategic green partnership. And there we hope really to embark upon a close political relationship that will also take on board all the financial tools, also take on board the private sector and all the institutional investors. So hopefully that will also involve some of you if you have an interest. If you don't have an interest, India doesn't care, because there are many other companies, many other investors who are really keen to come here, because they are investing in the future, not in a kind of pre-COVID attitude. They want really to look into the big thing. And India has a kind of specific advantage compared with many other countries. They have a population of 1.4 billion inhabitants. So the home market is big. Home market is big. So whether you are into food, whether you're into water, whether you're into electricity generation or whatever, there's a huge potential out here. So the market by itself is so important. And then, of course, in the longer run, India would like to become kind of the new factory of the world. They would like to become the new pharmacy of the world and so forth. So if we try to look into some of the sectors, you will have energy, everything related to energy, everything related to food, everything related to water, everything related to education and all these things. So India is upscaling, and whether you are interested or not, India will move on. And India will move on, and they will try to get the maximum out of these new situations. Three important things that we could see as trends evolving from the COVID fight. First and foremost, India was extremely swift in getting best practices collected from all over the world. And as soon as they were collected from either private sources or from their embassies across the world, these best practices was taken to Delhi and put into a structure of empowered groups, and then transferred, if possible, into an Indian context. We have never seen this kind of, let's say, choreographed and structured approach, and it has really worked and has helped India fighting this COVID-19 issue. But it's also giving India a very new mechanism. Secondly, the collaboration between the center and the states has never been better than we have seen today. In order really to cope with some of these issues related to COVID-19, the Indians had to really move the balance between the center and the states. And some regulations that we had not seen they were not able to remove over years, and perhaps not even dreaming about. Some of them were removed within 1 or 2 days. So this new mechanism is really something that will also help investors coming in. And we know that the states who are now competing, so Telangana, which is in the southern part, they are offering today that if an investor comes in within 15 days, all licenses should be in place. If they are not granted, then they will stand as they were applied for. And the bureaucrats are not delivering will be punished by personal fines. So that's a great system. And now we are basically into a system where if you don't get it within 1 week, then the licenses that you need, the access to land, electricity load, and so forth, that will be given within 1 week. And if not, then the licenses will stand as per your or the investor's request. So that's one thing. So this center of state collaboration is a brand new mechanism, and that will help at least some of the red tape to go away. Thirdly, India has really developed their digital skills. And don't forget that India, given this situation where you have 7 centuries being present at once, that the digital India is really important. So very early in March, when I place a call on my mobile, I will hit some Hindi speaking recording telling me how to behave and so forth. And that was pushed out to almost 1.2 billion inhabitants in India. So that mechanism is also really beefing up India. India has some advantages in the future, and one of them is that they have a pool of talents out here. 70% of the population is under 35 years of age, And many of these youngsters, they are IT specialists, they are IT nerds. And this potential, you cannot simply not, you can't overlook that. Secondly, they have an advantage in developing skills and technologies. And India is the country in the world where you have the biggest ecosystem for startups. And presently, and also under the COVID-19, you have seen a lot of startups emerging and appearing. So they are really on the forefront. So they have talents, they have people, the human resources, they have the technology skills, and they have now the willingness to move on. And I'm pretty sure that those Danish companies who are investing directly, they will see a different India from what India was before. Whether you as pension funds will invest or not, it's up to you.
We'll talk about this in a moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want on that, it's up to you simply, but I can tell you, if a Danish company wants to invest in India, they have to bring money along with them, and they need to bring in financial tools, and there's no way a big company with green energy cannot just come to India. They need to bring in money, they need to create jobs, they need to transfer technology. So just exporting, trading, that's the past. So you have to invest in the future of India. And let me just conclude by saying that we are all talking about climate changes and SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Whatever position we take, these goals cannot be realized or executed on without India being on board. So India has to be part of the equation, and nobody, not even the most powerful Prime Minister of Denmark, will be able to change anything if she or he, for the time being, she will not reach out to India. So Denmark as a country stands with a fantastic opportunity, also because of this Green Strategic Partnership. We are the first ones moving that with India, and India is so interested in that. So I think that's a sales pitch, but that's my role. And I hope that you will look into the future. It might be green, it might be rewarding, and then your money might also bring you at some distance, but you might also be looking for other destinations. That's your destination, that's your decision. So thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Freddie. Well done. And please stay on, because we'll have some questions afterwards. I'm really pleased that you are able to open in the way you do, because in this way we get straight talking and we get the opportunity to try to get going. And I'm pleased to say that following you is Amitabh Kant, who is head of the National Institute for Transformation. Transformation of 1.4 billion people is a big task. And actually, Amitabh has been recalled a few hours ago because his boss asked for a meeting, so we had to record him, but he was very kind to give another straightforward talk in the same way as Freddie Svane just did. So Peter, if you please will hand over to Amitabh Kant.
His Excellency, the Ambassador Freddie Svane, India's ambassador to Denmark, Mr. Ajit Gupte, Professor Arturo Briss from the IMD Business School, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be in the midst of all of you. Year 2020 marks the 400th anniversary of Indo-Danish relations. Back in 1618, the first Danish East Indian expedition set out. 1.5 years later, 1620, the expedition reached Tamil Nadu. Today, we have almost 200 Danish companies in India who are employing close to around 100,000 people. Danish investments in India are in areas such as shipping, renewable energy, environment, agriculture, food processing. Danish companies are keen to expand engagements in other sectors like smart urban development and waste to energy. India has the scale, Denmark has the skills. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi said this during Vibrant Gujarat Summit in 2019. To my mind, some key areas that offer tremendous scope for mutual beneficial collaboration are renewable energy, smart cities, water and wastewater, health research, climate change, resilience. Both the countries have decided to work towards creating a green strategic partnership. The aim of the partnership is achieving the joint goals of sustainable development. Increased cooperation within renewable energy has emerged as a very important part of the intensified dialogue between the two governments. Several areas for cooperation have been identified based on the ambitious India's target for renewable implementation and Denmark's experience and its success going through a transition to renewable energy over the last 4 decades. Over half of Denmark's energy in 2019 came from renewable sources. That's wind and solar. Denmark aims to be a CO2 neutral country by 2050. India will be one of the largest global markets for renewable in both the short and long term. In 2015, under the Paris Agreement, the Indian government presented its objective to achieve a target of 175 gigawatt renewable capacity by 2022. By 2030, India plans to have 40% of its capacity in electricity generation coming from non-fossil fuel sources. The scale of India's development in renewable capacity is one of the largest in the world. It's aiming for 100 gigawatt of solar, 60 gigawatt of onshore wind, 10 gigawatt of biomass, and 5 gigawatt of small-scale hydro by 2022. India is also targeting new renewable energy technologies such as offshore wind, hybrid solar wind, floating solar, and energy storage. Denmark was the first country in 1991 to begin the development of offshore wind as a renewable energy resource, and Danish experiences over the past 30 years are being used globally to support further development of one of the fastest growing renewable energy sources. The Indian government has set the target for offshore wind at 30 gigawatts by 2030, which is twice the capacity installed at the end of 2017 in 11 European countries. The process of urbanization in India has just begun. If India was to emulate the model of the European world, that is sprawling cities where urbanization is done for cars and not for people, then the world would require 4 planet Earth. But alas, we have only one Earth, and therefore India needs to do sustainable urbanization. Our focus is therefore on electric mobility, our focus is therefore on battery storage, our focus is on sharing mobility. Several studies have shown that by 2040, India till the 2040 will be driving shared and electric mobility. We have put a huge thrust on this. We have various initiatives such as the Make in India, Digital India, Startup India, and the Clean India Mission, providing significant opportunities for Danish companies to engage with India. We have laid a huge focus on ease of doing business. We have jumped up 75 positions in the World Bank ease of doing business. We rank our own states, and states compete with each other. And our objective is to become easier as we go along. Prime Minister of India had recently had a telephonic conversation on 14th May with Her Excellency Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark. The leaders compared notes on the steps taken in the two countries to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Modi appreciated Denmark's success in lifting the lockdown restrictions without causing an increase in infections. Both leaders also shared their desire to further strengthen India-Denmark relations and discuss the ways in which both countries could work together in the post-COVID world. In March 2019, Denmark and India had shown their intention to establish a center of excellence in India on offshore wind. The intent is to build on the existing strategic sector cooperation on offshore wind between the two governments and create a partnership where Danish and Indian government agencies will work together to develop the offshore wind energy sector in India. The Paris Agreement aims to limit the global temperature rise well below the 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. India is a major signatory to the agreement. We have made 3 commitments. India's greenhouse gas emission intensity of its GDP will be reduced by 33 to 35% below 2005 levels by 2030. 40% of India's power capacity would be based on non-fossil fuel sources. Create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover by 2030. We have recently taken several measures in healthcare sectors of pharma and medical devices. We are the 4th largest market for medical devices in Asia. India's medical devices industry is poised for significant growth in next 5 years, with the potential to reach close to 50 billion by 2025, almost a 5x growth from today. We have opened up our foreign direct investment regime across sectors. 98% of the foreign direct investment which comes into India comes from the automatic route without any approval. And this is applicable to both brownfields and greenfields establishments. Medical companies in Denmark have strong focus in areas like cancer and diabetes, as well as industrial biotech. There's a great opportunity here for India and Denmark to build industry, academia, and government level collaborations. As our Prime Minister Modi once said, that we need your skills and we can give you the size and scale of our markets. And this together can help us both create a win-win situation. The government has recently established Asia's first MedTech park in the state of Andhra Pradesh. We are also setting up 4 additional dedicated MedTech parks with a view to support manufacturing of pharmaceuticals and medical devices and provide world-class products at affordable prices for all. These dedicated facilities will support the manufacturing of high-end medical devices for both domestic and export markets. We are also supporting large-scale electronics manufacturing, active pharmaceutical ingredients, as well as pharmaceuticals, to we support them through a production-linked incentive scheme, and we are on the path to becoming a global hub for components manufacturing due to availability of cost-effective skilled manpower, fast improving infrastructure, and ease of doing business in the country. By 2025, the market opportunity for electronics component in India is expected to be about 200 billion. My view is that there are several areas of collaboration, but clean energy partnership can be a critical one. Denmark and India are developing an India-Denmark energy partnership, where India will work with Danish experts. This is a part of a 5-year program of government to government to support the India transition to a low carbon economy. We are laying a huge emphasis on water partnership, city to city partnership between Aarhus and Udaipur for cooperation of water management. The aim is to establish the Denmark-India Water Technology Alliance. The Water Alliance will provide a platform where Danish solutions can be brought to India. More such city-to-city collaborations will be explored. There's a huge possibility of dairy partnership. We are working along with the Denmark's embassy in India to create a dairy alliance and provide a better farm practices and solution, and a hospital alliance focusing on delivering Danish health tech and equipment. India is a vast market. Several of you represent, we all very fortunate to have with us Mr. Torben Moger Pedersen, who's the CEO of Pension Denmark. Several of you, we also have with us Mr. Bo Alma Knudsen, who's the CEO of Worldwide Asset Management. Both of you are experienced investors across borders with outstanding track records. India provides the opportunity for investments in a range of products which are actually brownfield projects already established, where revenue streams are already flowing in, where toll taxes ensure that you continue to have predictability and consistency of your revenue flow over a long period of time. And therefore, several other pension funds from Canada, Australia have invested in these opportunities. We are opening up our highways, we are opening up our airports, we are opening up a vast amount of infrastructure for all of you to come and invest. And if there's anything I can do personally, I will be very happy to hold your hands, act as a facilitator, and act as a catalyst to promote India-Denmark business opportunity. In closing, I would say that there are tremendous mutually beneficial opportunities in the area of infrastructure, healthcare, energy, medical device manufacturing, electronics, water, dairy, and again, I would say most importantly, clean energy. And I invite all you distinguished ladies and gentlemen to explore partnerships with Indian academic institutions, industry, enterprises, and government organizations in these areas. The Indian private sector is very highly developed, and it would like to collaborate with all of you and take this relationship with Denmark vigorously forward, hand in hand with all of you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Amitabh Kant, this was really inspiring, and I would go as far as saying that we have had two really nice sales pitches for India. And now I would like also to introduce Professor Arturo Briz. You are in Switzerland and you are with us now. And I will invite you also to kind of present from the outside in view of this. you do the annual World Competitiveness Report, and if I remember correctly, it will be released in 5 days from now. So you probably can't talk about the report itself, but maybe you can talk about your observations and your comments and your maybe recommendations for which areas to focus on. So Arturo, thank you so much for joining. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sandeep, and good afternoon.
Please add video, Mr. Arturo.
Oh yeah, you need to add your video, Arturo.
My video should be there, but
at the moment it's not.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Now we have your, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
But can you see me or just my background?
You can see your background.
There's only a background. There's no Arturo.
What about now?
Now you're there. Yes, okay. Perfect.
I'm sorry because I could see myself perfectly well. So. But anyway, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Sandeep, for this opportunity to speak about India in this especially relevant times for us. You know, at the IMD World Competitiveness Center, we're preparing ourselves to release our World Competitiveness rankings in 4 or 5 days, next week, at 11 a.m. on June 16th. And of course, we're still under data embargo. What I can tell you is that, if anything, the rankings will look extremely good for Denmark and, you know, somehow acceptable for India. But you will see next week. And it is my role in our discussion today to give more or less of the global perspective. India has been for a long time one of the high potential countries in our rankings. I mean, starting with the denomination as a BRICS country or a country of the future, we have always considered that in terms of competitiveness for the long term, India should be one of the leading countries in the coming generation. Of course, it's taking time. And we know that, you know, India has been a promising economy for many years and still doesn't take off. Last year, actually, economic growth declined significantly versus the previous year, and this was reflected in our rankings. Very recently, Moody's has downgraded the country to close to a junk status, and actually Moody's has declared that the possibility of a junk status is somehow likely. But at the same time, the OECD reported yesterday in its forecast for the coming years that among all of the OECD country members, India is going to perform better than the average. And I think in the worst case scenario, GDP will decline by 7.4% if there is a new pandemic, and 4.7% in the normal scenario, which is, for example, compared to any European country like the UK, France, or Spain, much better. So I think that, and that will be a premise that I will discuss later, that I think that India is in a position to fight better the post-pandemic crisis. What do we see now? What are the current issues that do not make India one of the top most competitive economies in the world? Well, obviously, the major difficulties in the country are its size, and I think the ambassador pointed that out very well. You know, large economies have difficulties at developing competitiveness models because of a lack of consensus, especially in democracies, and I think that's a drag for India compared to China. And I'm not trying to defend the Chinese political regime, but clearly in terms of competitiveness, the lack of political consensus that derives from a democratic regime takes a toll in a country with more than 1 billion people population. Second problem has been historically a lack of investment in the infrastructure of the country, what we call both physical and intangible infrastructure. You know, India has not optimal health system, invest little in education per student or per population or per GDP standards, and also, you know, it has a scientific infrastructure that is improving a lot. Okay. In that front, however, and I think we have heard our previous speaker talking about that, India has been ranking #1 in our studies, #1 in the world in investments in telecommunications. And I think that digital transformation and technology should be one of the pillars of the future transformation of the country. So infrastructure being a drag, still with positive news. Second, obviously, institutional quality. And we keep on observing that for the recent years, especially in contrast with Denmark, that has made an amazing leap on that front. Corporate governance rules, business efficiency, credibility of managers, protection of minority shareholders, all of these corporate governance rules that really make a country more attractive for international investment. If I can mention, for example, the case of Saudi Arabia in a period of about 4 years has gone from being in the bottom 10 in our competitiveness ranking to be in about position 26 last year and improving this year, as you will see. So, and this has been done primarily, among other things as well, but primarily through a massive reform of their corporate governance system in order to attract foreign capital, implementing new rules, ease of doing business, removing bureaucracy, and so on and so forth. And I think this is definitely something that that India needs. And obviously, in the last years, one of the major drags has been the economic performance. And I think this is where the hope lies, because I think that India keeps on doing things right by investing in the right infrastructures, by focusing on technology, by developing value-added sectors. I think the country is going to, comparatively speaking, is going to grow much faster than other economies, even much faster than China. And I see there the potential of the country. And I think the other reason why I think India is a promising country is that the type of reforms or the type of changes that need to be implemented are low-hanging fruits. That is, changes in regulation just require political consensus. You don't need huge investment. Put Brazil, for example, in contrast. You know, what Brazil needs is massive investments in physical infrastructure. Okay. For India, this is also a priority, but it's not the main priority. So I think India could actually, in a short period of time, make the development that the country needs. I want to address one important point as well, which is how will this COVID-19 crisis be resolved in different countries in the world, and how can India make a difference? Now more than ever, we feel that competitiveness as an objective, as a key performance indicator, is more important than ever. Because what we need to pursue now in our policies is prosperity, quality of life, people's progress, making sure that nobody is left behind, so fair development, redistribution, optimal fiscal rules, promotion of talent, but also the support for small and medium enterprises, making sure that companies navigate the crisis healthy, that the private sector creates jobs, and so on and so forth. And all of these policies are, at the end of the day, competitiveness policies. They are not different from the type of policies that we have been defending for many years. So the way how I think countries should navigate the crisis, and I think the way how India should navigate this crisis, is primarily by focus on prosperity and by focusing on individual welfare as the big priority. This is a different crisis. This is not a banking crisis. It is not a financial crisis. It's a people's crisis, where the damage has been done to individuals, and especially in a country like India, with a low income, you know, especially those at the bottom of the pyramid. So that's, I think, the way forward, and then I think that should be the priority of policies. Now, this has to be combined with long-term policy. So there should be short-term policies to navigate the crisis. There should be long-term policies to preserve and promote the competitiveness of the country. I think both of these types of policies can be very easily aligned. And if this is done properly, I think that the way for India is only up. I think we need to compare a country like India to, again, Denmark. Denmark is going to have a much easier way around. First, because it's a smaller country, and small countries fare better after the pandemic. Second, because its starting point is much better in terms of economic development. And third, because social justice and social fairness and the set of inclusive institutions that Denmark has in place are already of much better quality than India. Okay? So all in all, I think that there is a brilliant future. There are policies that need to be implemented in a proper way. If I need to mention finally what I think is going to be the major risk for India, this is going to be currency risk. In a more deglobalized world, where China, the United States are looking inward, those currencies like the Indian rupee, the Brazilian real, the Norwegian krone, all these exporting countries that do not dominate the scene necessarily are going to suffer a lot. And the biggest risk to manage, especially for international investment or international investors with respect to India, is going to be a currency risk. Just to give you some data from last year, India ranked one of the lowest countries in the volatility of exchange rates, and this was last year. So this year, of course, this is going to be emphasized because of the pandemic. So if I had to point out to an important risk that is going to be faced by the country in the coming year, this is going to be currency risk. So let me leave it here just to summarize again. Great potential, still waiting. We're still waiting for the right policies with great potential, but some risks in the horizon in the very short run as we fight the effects of the pandemic on the economy.
Thank you so much, Arturo. It was great, and I think that it's also very clear that it's not easy to get the success. We need a lot of ends to meet. And in order to get all this to work, I think it's also very important that we get a clear message from those who have the funding. Vejle Svane made it very clear that funding was needed. You made it very clear that there's a number of things that should be improved in order to improve the competitiveness of India